Hi, I'm Bob, the Mortgage Coach Mitchell. Thanks for stopping by today. We're continuing our series on the step-by-step process to buy a house, putting yourself in a position to successfully buy a house. In the previous videos, we talked about things like freeing up money to save. That was talking about the spending diary and keeping track of writing down everything that you spend for a week or a month preferably, but most people don't have the discipline to do that. So if you can do it for a week, you can still get a pretty good idea of where you're spending your money and where you're letting money slip through your fingers. I used the example in the previous video about how I used to spend about $1,500 a year on super big gulps. I cut that out and started brewing my own tea, and there's $1,500 I could use to buy a house. So anyway, that check out that video if you're interested in what a spending diary is. The second one was in setting up a forced savings account. That was before you actually see the money, have the money taken out of your paycheck. Go to your human resources department and say, hey, I'd like to get a direct deposit set up. Also, while you're there, ask them, does this company offer any kind of savings programs? Are there any employer matches to if I participate in a savings program? Some of them will actually, I think, can take the money out pre-tax. But if not, even if it's not available, you can still hook up with a bank or a credit union and set up a direct deposit to come out of your paycheck before you see it. That's particularly useful if you're getting ready to get a raise. Say you're getting ready to get $1 or $2 an hour raise. If you can take that money, instead of incorporating it into your cash flow, you can go ahead and get it taken out of your paycheck and deposit it into an account somewhere. I encourage you not to get a debit card with it. And the more difficult you can make it for you to get your money out, the better. I had actually set up one that was at an out-of-town bank that did not have a debit card, and I set it up with them to where I had to write to get my money. That was so that I wouldn't be frivolous about going and spending that money. So, but anyway, however you decide to do it, for savings account, have it taken out before you see it. It's going to be less painful if you don't have to see it in your checking account. If it's in a savings account before you see it, then more power to you. It's going to be a lot easier to save. Okay, the second one, step 3, was getting a copy of your free annual credit report, and that's by going to www.annualcreditreport.com. That's the official one. Every year you have a right to get all of the information from all 3 bureaus. They don't have to give you the scores, but I think on the site they are willing to sell them to you. Not a bad idea. It's a real good idea to find out where you're at, to make sure there's no inaccurate information that's being reported on there. Up to 85% of credit reports out there have inaccurate information on them. Some of it can substantially affect your credit score. Personally, I have one right now where I had a fraudulent charge on a card that I had to cancel, and the company is still reporting that charge, that trade line, with a balance, and at the time it was a fairly substantial balance, so it's affecting my credit score. So I had to go through the process of getting that corrected. By looking at your credit report every year, you'll see if that sort of thing pops up on there, or maybe a collection account that doesn't belong to you, or any other kind of inaccurate information. If you don't look, you won't see. So anyway, annualcreditreport.com, www.annualcreditreport.com. Now, if your credit is a mess, okay, if you have derogatory information, I'm going to suggest that you go ahead and move straight to hiring somebody to help you. There are 2 companies that I'm linking to in the description that I've worked with clients in the past, that they've done a good job. They don't charge a tremendous amount of money. Be careful about the little signs you see along the side of the road saying 1-800, whatever, we fix bad credit. Some of those I'm sure are legitimate, but I've heard some horror stories, and I recently had a client who had spent thousands of dollars and they didn't accomplish anything for her. The 2 companies that I linked to, I've personally have had experience through clients that they've worked on and have been able to help them, and I know that they weren't terribly expensive. Okay. Now, if your credit's good, yay, good for you. All right. There's still some steps that you can do in getting ready to buy a house. One, stop applying for charge cards. Inquiries can zing you. 1 or 2 is probably not going to hurt you too bad, but they fall off, I think, on an annual basis. But if you have a whole bunch of credit inquiries, particularly recently, right before you apply for your mortgage, that can zing your credit score, and it's something that you probably should avoid if you can. So stop applying for credit. Pay your bills on time. I am thoroughly amazed and this is, and I'm sure it's going to happen to me again. It's happened to me in the past. I have a client come in wanting to buy a house, and I pull a credit report and I see that they didn't make a bill last month and that they clicked a 30-day late just last month. It's like, oh, I got busy. I was out looking at property and this, that, and the other thing. No, no, no. Pay your bills on time. Make it right, particularly right before you but right before you apply for a mortgage, you want to make sure that you don't gape off and miss a bill. Okay, so pay the bills on time. Don't make any large purchases. Okay, I mean, at least I mean, if you got the money, you got plenty of cash for your closing and everything, then fine, buy what you want. But don't make any large purchases and finance them. Uh, you know, a car note. You might go out and buy a new car and have a $700 a month payment. Well, if you didn't have that payment for the last 2 years, how are we going to know how that's going to affect your ability to make the payment on the mortgage going into the future? So it's definitely a consideration. If you can put off the car purchase until after you close, it's going to help you. It's going to help you get into the house. Recently, I got an alert from my credit monitoring service that my credit score had dropped 41 points. 41 points. So I got on the computer and I looked it up. And sure enough, what I had done was I booked a trip. I put a rent-a-car and a hotel room on the same charge card. And just by applying it hadn't even, I hadn't even gotten a statement on it. It dropped my credit score by 41 points. So again, it shows why you don't want to make large purchases. Okay, and the last one, and everybody can do this, good credit or bad credit, pay your balances down. It doesn't make any sense to carry charge card balances. Okay, a couple different reasons. One, charge cards are very expensive, anywhere from 14 to 30%. Went to a seminar once where the financial planner guy said, hey, how many of you folks in the audience would be interested in a 100% safe investment that paid between 14 and 30% on, again, a 100% safe investment and no commissions in or out? Well, of course, everybody raised their hands. Well, who wouldn't want to get 30% on their money with no risk? And the guy turned around and said, pay your charge cards off. So it makes sense. There's cheaper ways to borrow than carrying a balance on your charge card. And some of the balances can be very, very punitive. 30% is not unheard of. The other thing is if you're carrying balances on your charge cards, it's going to hurt your credit scores, or it might hurt your credit scores. Anytime that you're above 50% of the high credit, if your balance is above 50% of the credit limit, the computer model is going to rule that as if you're getting tight. The higher above 50% it goes, the more it's going to zing you on your credit score because it's going to read you as being tapped out. So you definitely want to keep your balances below 50%. Below 30%, between 30% and 50%, it's still going to hurt you, but just not as bad. When you get below 30%, it's more of a neutral thing. It's not necessarily going to help you, but it's not necessarily going to hurt you. When you get your balances down to less than 10% of the high limits, of the credit limits, then it's actually going to help you. So reducing the balances on your charge cards helps you, and not only in just paying less interest, but also on getting your credit scores up. So again, I'm Bob, the Mortgage Coach Mitchell. I hope you learned something here today. If it's something that you think might help somebody that you know, please feel free to share the video. I also like it, and if you would, subscribe to the channel. I'm really working hard on getting this thing, the algorithms to recognize it, and trying to make it informative and entertaining. So if you can, help me out. Subscribe, hit the subscribe button. Thank you very much. Again, I'm Bob, the Mortgage Coach Mitchell. Now let's put you into a house.